I want to welcome you to the Pro Mindset Podcast. The Pro Mindset Podcast is all about diving into the headspace that results in championship performance. High-performing athletes, winners, have this mental flow and have a positive headspace for their performances and success. Join me, Craig Domann, sports attorney and NFL agent, on this podcast. I will interview pro athletes, college athletes, football coaches, and sports personalities. Together, we can discover how you can get in the flow and have your own pro mindset. Okay, I want to welcome a special guest today to Pro Mindset Podcast, Bill Robers. Bill is an attorney by day, an official by weekends. He's a college football official in the Big Sky.
Big Sky. Mm-hmm.
Yep. How long have you been an official in college football?
I've been officiating overall for, I guess, about 15 years or so. And in college I did some JUCO out in California for a couple of years, and then here between the RMAC and the Big Sky, 9 years. Okay,
so almost a decade of officiating college football. And what we're going to dive into today is the unique mindset that officials have to have. What is the mindset? What's the optimal mindset for an official to be successful when you've got to be cool under pressure? You've got to work together with a crew of 7 other guys. You've got to be able to handle all the outside noise. You've got to be able to eliminate it. And you've got to be able to also handle that week-to-week evaluation and criticism that you're going to get about your performance.
So I guess, there's a couple things in there. First of all is being a good person. I know it seems like a cliche, but again, you're going to hang out every weekend with the same guys. If they can't stand hanging out with you, and that does happen, it's not going to work very well because nobody wants to be around those guys. So, right, being a good crewmate and just doing things for the crew, doing your job certainly is number one. Each of us have different jobs before. Some of us are film guys, some of us are test guys. We write up tests for the week. You have to do your job. So if you do your job and you get along with your crew, that's certainly one thing. The ability to be on a field and communicate is much more important than it used to be. Communicate not necessarily just with the other officials, although that's important, to communicate with the coaches and the players. It's gotten to be so important. There are many officials that I know of that can't make the jump into college because they cannot take being yelled at by a coach. And we all get it. We've all been there. One of the things I do when I get yelled at by a coach is I usually think to myself, first of all, I'm not going to have to see him again for at least a couple of weeks, if ever. And number two, he has to deal with things that I have no idea about when it comes to his players and parents and whatever else. I try to keep that in my mind as he's yelling at me because I'm saying, hey, it's his job to win. He sees it differently. He's biased. I'm not. And by the way, you also have to have the mindset of maybe I was wrong. There are plays that I look at and say, and there are sometimes I have to tell the coach, here's what I saw. If it's the way you saw it, I'm wrong. And sometimes that comes to fruition. You are wrong. You look at it on film and say, yep, I blew that. I think that's the other mindset, is to be able to watch critically yourself on film and be able to watch plays and say, you really messed that one up. And things that, especially as you watch it, and it's little things that nobody in the world will see except for you or other officials. But you look at it and say, you know what, I got to do better at that. And I'll watch film, and I watch it with a pad of paper, and I will watch myself, and I will constantly write down little notes of don't do this or do this. Constantly trying to improve. I always say it's the place, or there's a saying that says it's a job where you're expected to be perfect when you get there and get better every week. Right? So you're expected to be perfect, but nobody's perfect. And the coaches, by the way, no, you're not perfect. It's fine. They understand that. When your game gets done, almost every coach to a person says, hey, great job, guys. It doesn't matter how much he yelled at you because he knows you're just doing the best you can. Nobody's perfect. But the ability to get out on the field, yes, zone out all of the interference. There's lots of fans yelling. That's not a problem. There's players that will yell at you about different things or will yell at the other. Just being able to get in there and realize this is a game. We're just trying to keep everybody safe, make sure everybody's playing by the same rules. And then also able to, one of the big mindset issues is to be able to put everything, all of us have lives. None of us officiate full time. There's certainly not enough money in it for that. So it's just be able to set aside, as an attorney, it's not always easy to set aside work. But when I go into that game for 3 hours, I do not even consider anything to do with my regular job. It's just be able to set all that aside. And number one, think to yourself, this how lucky you are to be out here. And then just think, this is all about this game and the kids. Let's get these plays right. And then I guess the last thing I would say is having a very, very short memory on the field. There are plays when you realize at the time, you know what, I think I just blew that call. It happens. To be able to say, you know what I can do about that now? Nothing. So move on to the next play. Don't worry about that. It's going to come. Part of the other thing is being able to set aside that you're going to get evaluated on it. I know there's guys on the field that are always thinking, oh, I screwed that up. Now for the next quarter, all they're thinking about is I'm going to get downgraded. Who cares? Being able to look at grades, by the way, and saying these don't mean that you're not a good official. They're trying to get you better. Too many people look at these grades and this person doesn't like me, or this person doesn't know what we do at our conference, or just look at it critically and say, what can I use to get better? And don't worry so much about the grade. Just they're trying to get you better. So just always trying to improve, and again, just being able to set aside all the noise and just focus on one play at a time, and then be ready for plays. One of the things I think makes a good official is somebody that knows the game of football. There are too many officials that get in, never played. That's fine. Don't necessarily have to have played, but you got to understand when you get into a third down and long, you have to know what's going to happen. If you get in there and just are thinking like every other play, well, it could be a pass, it could be a run, you're going to get lost. You have to understand the game a little bit. If for nothing else, you've got a close game, and after every play, I stare at the sideline. I look right at the coach because I know he might want a timeout. And the last thing you want, if you want to upset a coach, very easy to do that. Don't get his timeout signal. Don't be looking at him where he has to run all the way down the field and call timeout to you because you didn't look. It's one thing if it's in the middle of a quarter, but if it's the end of the game, that doesn't look very good to anybody. So just understanding the game and knowing kind of what's next. Maybe anticipate, but don't guess. We don't guess the next play, but we kind of anticipate what might happen. As a deep guy, third and long, I know what's happening. I know it's going to come, and I'm hoping, by the way, it comes right in front of me because I want that opportunity to make that judgment or make that call. But the idea of just being able to understand the game.
Well, interestingly, it seems like officials, and I remember when I did it briefly, you're almost like a competitor in the game. You just want to be an invisible competitor, and you want to dance in sync with the coaches on both teams. And you've got to have just as much mental energy, just as much competitiveness, just as much performance-mindedness as the athletes and the coaches. The other thing I would add is that coaches that get pissed off are usually pissed off at something else, like their marriages, their relationship with their AD, the conversation they had with their booster at the golf outing on Friday. Things that you don't have any idea about, but when you make a call, it triggers anger from that person. So I think that one of the best advices I have, and I'm not a mental therapist for officials, but if I was, I would say don't worry about it because you just don't have any idea what's going on behind the scenes. So,
and I usually tell younger officials, if there is a coach that is yelling at you, I always tell them the same thing, which is your answer to the coach is, yeah, I hear you, coach. And I said, you wait if he's really angry, you wait until he's not angry. Wait for 3 plays. Wait for 4 plays if you have to. Eventually get back to him and talk to him. Don't just forget about it. But a lot of times when you go back and talk to him, when he's a little bit more calmed down, and just say, Coach, here's what I saw. That play 4 plays ago, this is what I saw. If you saw it differently, maybe I was wrong, but this is what I saw. More often than not, the coach will say, okay. Or the coach, a lot of times, will say, I don't even know what you're talking about. Right? They
forgot about it.
Yeah, they forgot all about it. They're on the next play. But just don't get into, there's no reason to get into a coach when he's really upset. Now, you have to answer questions, and you should do that even if he's upset. When he's making comments rather than questions, there's no reason to come back at him. Just sit there and take it and go back later and say, try to explain to him. And I think that's usually what the coaches like to, coaches, we always hear the same thing, which is, I just want my guys to communicate. I want those officials to communicate with me. And if you are not a good official, it's usually because the coaches will tell the super, I can't communicate with these guys. This person won't communicate with me. So I make it a point to always communicate all game. And if he gets upset about something, and let's say it's not in your area, I will say, Coach, you know what? I will get that answer for you. And if you tell him that, you darn well better get it for him. And then again, 2 plays later, you say, hey, Coach, I talked to the official over there. Here's what he saw. And it's usually just a matter of he's trying to figure out how to coach his guys, right? So we got to hold over there. Hey, what did my guy do? What am I not teaching him to do right? So a lot of times sometimes they're just upset, but usually then they don't care too much after a couple of plays.
So what is your favorite thing, and why did you get into being an official?
Well, Craig, I was always a basketball guy. My family is all into basketball. My sister played Division I basketball at Colorado State, was the all-time leading scorer there. I was always a basketball fan and wanted to somehow stay involved in basketball. I started as an attorney at a very large firm in LA, and it really was one of those, if you're going to do basketball, you have to be able to get out kind of any day. And it's very hard at a big firm as a new attorney to get out you don't run your own schedule. So I looked at football, had some people talk to me about football and said, can you get out on a Friday night or on a Saturday afternoon? And the answer was, yeah, I can do that. So that's kind of how I started it, probably back in 2003. Started out in Los Angeles, and you really you start at the junior high level and the Pop Warner level, and you just kind of move along. It's interesting, a lot of people ask, why are there so many lawyers? Why are there, in officiating, why are there salespeople? And it all goes back really to those starting days. Is who can get out at 3 o'clock on a Thursday to go do these things? Who has Saturday that they can do these things? Doctors, or at least dentists. A lot of those can. Attorneys can. Teachers, salespeople. So it all kind of goes back to just kind of those first days and what you were able to do.
What is the funnest part about being an official in college football in 2019?
The camaraderie is awesome. We've had, in the Big Sky, I've been with the same crew generally for the past 5 years. And this off season, our coordinator jumbled up the crews as they do every once in a while. Now we have other guys that I am with, and all the guys are awesome, especially when you get to the Division I level like we're at. The idea is you really can't get there without being a good person. Nobody moves you up if people can't get along with you. So you move up, and the best part is going in on a Friday and meeting 7 other guys. All of us are away from our families. We generally, depending on the place, we'll meet up and do something, whether it's golf or something else on that Friday. Go have a nice meal. There is lots of meetings going on. We watch film. We have meetings on Friday, usually on Saturday. Saturday, depending on when your game is, you're watching other football games. And it's just, the brotherhood that you have is awesome. To be able to meet with these guys and just hang out and just think and talk about football and, just have fun. And then Sunday comes and everybody gets on that first flight back home to go see the kids and family. But yeah, definitely the brothership, the fellowship, and the camaraderie. I shouldn't say brothership. We do have some females now in the college ranks. We don't have any in the Big Sky, but just being able to hang around those people and have some fun and just talk about football.
Sounds like to me it's like you have your own team with your own game every weekend during the fall.
Absolutely.
I officiated high school football when I was in law school for 3 years, and I started doing freshman football games and was a line judge. And there's an adrenaline hit you get from officiating a football game that the fans would never ever think would happen. So kind of share with us when you're in the game, or you're running out of the tunnel and you're doing before the coin flip, what are the butterflies and what are the adrenaline hits during the course of a game as an official of a college football game?
Yeah, so when you come out of so we get there to the game, again, we've been having meetings and usually some telephone calls with possibly our coordinator if we have any issues going on. But we watch, before we get there, we watch film of both the teams that we're going to see today. We watch film from last week, the game last week that we worked, picking up issues that we maybe missed, things that we did well. Then you get to the game. We usually get there 2.5 hours before the game. And for an hour and a half, That is time that we spend either in the locker room or either meeting with coaches and meeting with timers and everything. An hour before the game, you go out on the field, and we're getting out there to watch these guys warm up. So you get out there, it is very work-oriented. You get out there on the field, and you are doing things that you will do during the game. You go and watch these guys warm up. As a field judge, I watch generally the wide receivers, watch them run their routes, watch punt returners. Then when one of those teams goes in, you go into the locker room. We go in the locker room, we meet again, we talk about some things, and then we go out right before kickoff. And that's when the adrenaline hits, because now you've got, depending on where you are, if you're at Montana, we've got 27,000 people there that, love their Grizzlies. So you come out there, that's when it hits you what you're doing. And the one nice thing is it puts everything on. I've got a million things going on with my regular job. And just put all that stuff aside, and you get out there and realize, how much fun it is to be out there. And although I wish I was still in pads, being able to hit somebody and go play some football, it's just so much fun to be a part of it. And then to be part of it with guys that you are genuinely friendly with and friends, basically brothers with, and go out there and just, for 3 hours on a Saturday, have some fun. Some of it's tough, but it's generally just being close to the game is great.
Bill, what's the toughest part? Describe for our audience the toughest situation you've been in as an official?
So as I'm on the sideline, you have a lot of coaching situations. Part of our job on the sideline is to communicate with those coaches. I don't mind it. I don't mind the coaches that get upset. That is, their lives depend on the bodies of 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. I understand that they have to deal with, they lose a game, they could get fired. So we have to understand, and I try to understand all the time as a coach is really getting into you about a call, whether it's right or wrong. None of that matters, whether it's right or wrong. He's upset about it. It's one of those issues you just have to sit and listen and deal with it. It's very rare that you'll see, and you see it once in a while, a flag on a head coach. Usually that's only if they come way out onto the field. That coach is on the sideline yelling at you, you just take it. So some of those can be pretty tough. One of the other things in college football, because of the video that we have now and the evaluations, the accountability is tremendous. And I don't think it used to be that way, especially when I was in high school. You went out and worked a game, you went home. And you didn't really think about football again until kind of the next week's game. Well, now we leave that site and we've already got video that we have on our computers that we can watch. Just as soon as the game is done, we get it loaded onto our computers to watch. And we have to write down everything that happened in the game, before we watch any video. So you got to write down everything you saw on different plays, every penalty you had, exactly what you saw, because we get evaluated. So every single player is reviewed by a video evaluator and then by our coordinator. So the video evaluators we have generally are Pac-12 officials, and I think some NFL officials review our videos as well, and then it goes to the supervisor. So, one of the things that's hard too is understanding the accountability and being able to take the criticism that you need to be able to take. Just being able to say, next play, that one's over, and those people are there to get you better, and it's hard sometimes to understand that when they're kind of ripping into you. But that's their whole purpose, is to get you better. So some of that stuff is hard. Dealing with coaches can be hard. The rules should not be hard. You should know those frontwards and backwards.
Okay, so you're in a performance-based industry. You get evaluated and you can get terminated if you're not doing a good job. One of the things that I see in basketball and football is the proverbial makeup call. And you're getting evaluated, so you can't do a makeup call. Okay, you can't call a phantom penalty that's not there. But there is one play in football, and there may be more than one, but there's at least one play in football, or one action in football, and that's blocking, where you can call holding on almost every play. And that is an opportunity for a crew to call something to make up for something that they maybe did wrong. What other plays or actions in football are make-up opportunities, because technically they might be able to be called almost on every play, but if you call them on every play, that would destroy the continuity and the flow of the game, and you really don't want to call those those penalties unless it's pretty egregious.
So, yeah, the holding, obviously, everybody always says there's holding on every play. One of the things we generally are taught to look at, and you are looking at, is whether or not it has any effect on the play. Happens all the time that you've got a hold on the right side and there's a sweep to the left. And, of course, the sideline is yelling at you, the fans are yelling at you, and you're looking at it thinking, it has nothing to do with the play.
He could never get to the ball carrier.
Yeah, nothing to do with the play. I'm not going to bother with that. I mean, that's one thing you're trained as you get to be from a younger official who would call that because they just see it, to being more seasoned where you see a foul and the immediate thing you think of, it just, a lot of times you'll see, if anybody listening to the podcast or you watch college games, watch NFL games, you'll see what you believe is a late flag. And even the announcers will call it out as a late flag. Typically, it's not late. It's a matter of guys that know what they're doing, watch the play, see the foul, look and see where the ball is. They try to, they go through their mind, is this enough to call? Does it have any effect on the play? And that's why some of these come in late. Right? You never want to throw a flag too early because last time I checked, they don't have a string on them that you can pull them back. Right? So you got to wait. If it's a foul now, it'll be a foul when you throw it in 3 to 5 seconds. That's fine. Makeup calls, we get asked that a lot. I certainly don't know of any. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know in my head if that possibility is there, but I think it'd be pretty rare. I mean, we do make calls. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. Hopefully much more right than wrong. You'll get a coach once in a while say, you owe me one, and the coaches say that they know that that's not going to happen, at least not intentionally. So, but there are plays, as a deep official, we have pass interference. That's pretty difficult to determine. One of the things has to be a material restriction on the ability to catch the ball. Well, one person's materiality is different than another's. And so you look and people say, it's contact there. Well, yes, there can be contact. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's a foul there. The guy catches the ball. Well, if the guy catches the ball, chances are, unless it's pretty egregious, we're not going to call pass interference because there's no reason to stop the game so that we can go through and say penalty declined. So there's not much reason to do that. One of the other things is formations is another one that can get, you probably could call things on a lot of plays. They have to have 7 guys on the line of scrimmage. And sometimes those guys are not on the line of scrimmage. Does it really matter? Does it have an effect on the play? Ironic thing is, a lot of times the answer is no, it doesn't have an effect on the play. We'll get graded and say you guys missed this formation penalty. And when you say you missed it, it's not like you've got 2 receivers off the line. You've just got a tackle that is a little far back because he's pass blocking. And is he on the line? No, but it's a really, he's supposed to break the center's waist to be on the line. Is he always doing that? No. Does it have an effect? That's one of the things you look at and say, yeah, I could probably call a lot of things on that. But it's simple things like that you look at and say, is it going to affect? Sometimes a defense will look and say, that guy's on the line of scrimmage. He cannot go out for a pass. That's one thing you may look at and say, yeah, that affects it. But for the most part, a lineman that's just a little bit off, that's another thing that you can let go. But you warn, that's another thing we do a lot of is warn guys, especially early in the game. We don't want to wait till the fourth quarter to call something. But if you got something that's close in the first quarter to be able to go in, I do it all the time as a deep official. Defensive back, chucks the receiver at the line, gets a little high, and maybe chucks him in the face. Well, there's a run play. I will run into that defensive player and say, keep those hands down low, keep them at the chest. Or there's a run play on the other side, receiver comes out and holds his defender. I will run in there and say, that comes this side, I've got to hold, so don't grab. Little things like that. Lots of working with the players to try to keep from interrupting the flow of it.
So I remember when I was officiating, it's been a long time ago, and you see it in the NFL too, that every year they come out with points of emphasis. And they use it as an opportunity to educate the coaches and the players on, hey, these things we're going to be keeping an eye on this year. What are the points of emphasis for college football for 2019 that perhaps in 18 and before they didn't really focus on?
Yeah, so in the past it wasn't always that they wrote these things down, right? They would tell you, your supervisor would tell you, or the league, the NCAA office would tell you things. Well, now in the last several years, they put them right down into the rule book, and it says points. There's a page in the rule book that says points of emphasis. And so this year, and it is true. I mean, one of the things that's nice to be able to say to a coach, you make a call, and the coach is yelling at you, and you just look at the coach and say, "Coach, that's a point of emphasis this year. We're supposed to call those." So they get that because they've hopefully read them, although it's not always. But this year we've got, as with the last several years, is defenseless players, crown a helmet, all the targeting aspects, trying to get those dangerous hits to the head out of this game. So they're trying to get those things out. Basically, helmets this year to make sure that they're fitted properly. Again, just an issue of safety with the head. Sideline control, that we get that a lot. Be able to control your sideline. Keep guys off of what we call off of the white, right? So that's where the officials are supposed to work. It's a 6 foot wide white line that's supposed to be only for officials. Try to keep people out of there. If we run into somebody, we're going to get hurt, they're going to get hurt, they're going to get a penalty. None of that is good. So we try to keep people out of there. Another thing is, a couple of years ago, we've been told, that coach steps out onto the field and is arguing a call, that is a flag. As a official for a long time, you have that happen, and you typically move them back to the sideline. And then, the grades come out, and you get downgraded because you say that guy's out on the field complaining about a call. You got to make that. So, you get things, sideline control, and then just the safety, medical considerations, concussions, all of that seems like these days always a point of emphasis, and that they still are this year. There's some rule changes to the blindside block this year has been thrown in. We've always had, if somebody gets a blindside block to the head, that is a targeting potential. This year, blindside block, any attacking hit against a guy from the blind side is a penalty automatically. So we try to watch those, and you have certain things you watch for, guys swimming upstream and other things.
Okay, let's talk about replays. When did the replay come into college football?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, they had replay, I want to say in the 90s is when it started to come in. And it all came down, from what I understand, it came down to a call in a game with Miami when Jimmy Johnson was there. And a game in which there was a play at the end of the game that was incorrectly ruled. If they had replay, it would have been overturned, and Miami likely goes on to another undefeated season. And the year after that, from what I understand, is when replay came in, just because they didn't want that to happen.
So let's talk about the standards. So
the replay, and just walk through what happens. So we've got a play. Typically, if it's a fumble, because of replay, it used to be in the past, if there's somebody close to being down or fumble, you had to make a judgment. Now, if it's close, you don't make a judgment. It is a fumble. You let it go. Because if you rule them down, replay can't do anything unless there's immediate recovery. If you let it go, they can always come back and say it's down. So, all right, there's a fumble. We rule it goes to the defense. Replay could page down. We've all got pagers on the field. So we feel this page come down to us. You hear the referee say the previous play is under review. Replay is looking from every angle they can just to see, is he down, is he not down? Generally, they can determine who recovered it, but only if it's in immediate and they can see it. Sometimes it goes into this pile. And if they can't see, they have no idea. They go with what the people on the field saw. So, but if you have it go the other way, replay could come in and say his knee was down before the fumble. We're going to go back, and then I know a lot of people look at replay and say, why is this taking so long? Well, if replay reverses something, we now have to go look at the clock. We have to look at the down. We have to look at the distance. A lot of things we have to go back where the ball is placed where we are expected to go. And now we're going to change all these things. The other thing that's nice now, we all have headset systems where we all can talk to each other. One of the things in most conferences, and certainly in our conference, while replay is talking to our referee, they've got an open mic. So we listen to what they're saying. And the idea is, once we get a ruling, by the time the referee makes the announcement, the ball's already where it needs to go. We're all ready to go. Instead of getting where they used to go under the headset, and they still do somewhat, go under the headset, they come out, they make the announcement, then we have to all go enforce it, figure out where it goes. hopefully we're trying to speed things up. That doesn't happen anymore. So he could rule his knees down. He could rule that there was a recovery by the offense and a guy down before the defense got it. There's a lot of things they could do. But then, again, now they have to look back at kind of all the other things and make sure we get them right.
When you look back at the last couple of years and you look at your evaluation reports, where are you most often wrong? Where are you most often critiqued?
Yeah, generally, so we get, like I said, they look at every play. From what I understand, a lot of them will look at every play 7 times. And the reason they do it 7 times is they're looking at everybody's key. So we have, myself as a deep official, my key is that wide receiver, the widest guy on the field. They will watch that player during the whole down. Then they'll rewind it and they'll look at another player. And basically they're just trying to see, did you miss anything on you? Because it's not always evident just watching the play. Right? So, and now when I watch film, it's always you're just watching those outside guys. I'm just watching what my position would do. But where am I most often wrong? It's rare that you are wrong. And I know people like to rip into officials at our level, certainly at the NFL level. I mean, it is unbelievable how often these people are correct. The main issue, we have this mechanics manual that says exactly where you need to be, where you should be for every call. If you are in the right spot, your chances of getting that call right go up exponentially. If you're in the wrong spot, it's tough to see those. Now, we're also taught, and you can probably see this, that if you're not sure of a foul, there's no foul. Right? So unless you are 100% sure, you let it go. Now, so where am I most often, the judgment on pass interference is difficult at times, trying to determine whether or not there's a material impact. Sometimes, again, as they're reviewing it, mechanics always come in. You should have been here. You should have been there. There's a lot of times when they say you should get to the goal line quicker. You're trying to watch the play, but you want to get there and stop and watch everything from just standing. So that's typically some of the things I get. The referees will get downgraded sometimes on announcements. They're graded very particularly. We want to give the crowd and the coaches as much information as we can without taking too much time. So you'll have a referee that won't make an announcement on something that he should have, not a penalty, but something that happened that is a little strange. Here's what happened. This is why. You'll hear it sometimes, no pass interference, ball was uncatchable. Or you hear the referee say there is no pass interference on the penalty, on the play, the ball was tipped to the line of scrimmage. Right? Certain things, or there's a guy in the vicinity, right? There's a receiver in the area. You'll hear those things, and that's just telling the fans as they're complaining about having a no call that you will say, here's why this is the case. So those guys, umpires get dinged a lot on holding. Sometimes they affect the play, sometimes they don't, but that's what they're mainly there to look for. So it's hard. Punts are another thing that's just, everything seems to go wrong on punts. If it's going to go wrong in the game, it's on a punt. And so you got a lot of guys running down, everybody running with them. You'll sometimes miss these blocks in the back. But in general, sometimes you miss dead ball things that you just can't miss. These, dead ball hit or unsportsmanlike conduct. Because again, you're looking saying, I don't really want to take it away from these kids, but some things really do deserve it. And you try to lay off of it, and sometimes you get dinged on that. So
you play commissioner of officials of the whole world of football. Just for a moment, what is the change that you would recommend in terms of either adding a new penalty, removing a penalty, or changing the yardage on a particular infraction?
So it's funny you ask that, because we do get, as Division I officials, we get at the end of every year, we get a survey from the NCAA Rules Committee. They send it out to coaches, they send it out to all officials, and they ask those exact questions. They will have a couple of things that they're on top of, saying, what do you think if we did this? Those are things you typically know are always, one of them is timing issues. Right? Should we not stop the clock on a first down? We talk about that all the time. I think that's one thing that they want to it's interesting, they want to try to speed up the games. They want to have the same number of plays in the game, but they want to speed it up. There's ways you can do that. A couple of years ago, they said halftime, 20 minutes, no exception. It used to be some had 22, now they say 20 minutes. Doesn't matter if it's senior day, we don't care. 20 minutes, start to finish. We also added in a 40-second clock after a kickoff that goes back, either gets returned or is a touchback. Used to be those guys would take their time, but now we get a 40-second clock, let's go. all things to move the game along, but we don't take out plays. One thing is the offensive pass interference is, since I see that all the time, it's hard to say if there's a small, let's say it's 2nd and 1, and they throw the ball downfield, and we've got a little bit of a push-off by the offense. Well, now I call offensive pass interference, it's a 15-yard penalty. So now instead of 2nd and 1, it's 2nd and 16. I know the NFL has changed it so that it's not as punitive. That would be a suggestion to maybe think about not making that quite as punitive. Other than that, people a lot smarter than me have figured out what the good penalties are on these things. So,
well, I'm not sure if this is in college, but it definitely is in the pros, where you've got running into the kicker, and then you've got roughing the kicker, and it's a 50 Shades of Grey type thing. It's a degree issue, but and every penalty is either 5, 10, 15, or spot. Fair?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Or half the distance. Yeah.
Or half the distance, depending on where you're at. So it's like, is there anything that you see that would be called more if the yardage enforcement was less? Whether it's formational and you took it to 2 yards instead of 5, and that way you do it real quick, you move it 2, bada boom, you go, and it allows you to call the game as you're supposed to, but doesn't mess up with the flow as much and doesn't penalize the offending team as much.
Yeah, I really can't think of anything. I mean, you certainly don't want to change from 5, 10, 15 to adding in additional ones, right? We've already got, the reason they do 5, 10, 15 is it's easy on the field. Yeah, with the yard lines, it's easy to see where we're going. So I don't want to make it any more difficult to have these penalties marched off. But they have made some changes that I think are good. For one, if you get a personal foul or an unsportsmanlike conduct on a touchdown, in the past, a long time ago, those were on the try. Right? Those penalties came on a try. Well, kicking the ball from the 25 as opposed to kicking it from the 10 after the snap from the 3, a lot of these kickers, that doesn't make any difference. So that's not really a penalty. Now moving it to the kickoff, I think, was great. The idea being, you're going to get penalized for this, and so we're going to move it back. You're not going to be kicking off from the 20 instead of the 35. I think that's a good one. One of the other rules that came in, I think, the fair catch signal on kickoffs and moving the ball to 25 on those, I think is a good move. I know that I believe they want to get kickoffs out completely. It's not the play that has the most injuries, but it's the play typically with the most severe injuries is those kickoffs, because you've got 11 guys running full speed at 11 guys sometimes running full speed the other way, and the collisions that happen are quite dangerous. They've changed a bunch of things, making all the players be within 5 yards. I see them changing that. They probably could change it to the NFL rule, making them all be within 1 yard. I don't know if it really, they still get a head of steam, so I'm not sure what that does. But I know that I think they would like to get kickoffs out completely. I don't know if they can do that. I thought the AAFL had an interesting idea of, because they need it there for these onside kicks, that they had an interesting idea of, well, we're not going to have kickoffs. If you need the ball, we're going to give you 4th down, and I forget what it was 13 or 18 or something, at a specific yard line, and you have one play. If you get it, steal your ball, go ahead. So I thought that was interesting, but I think they've done a good job at trying to figure out what is a good penalty for these things. Hopefully they keep doing it, but I know they're trying to make the game safer, and everything that's not safe, they're going to make 15-yard penalties, which I think is fine. That's good.
Have you ever had a situation where you were scared for your life after a game was over, running to the officials' locker room?
At the FCS level, we've got some places that I won't name, but that make us walk through the crowd right after a game. Now, they typically have security with us, but sometimes that security is student security. Typically never a problem. We've never had a problem with it, especially at the FCS level. You get high school games, yeah, there are some scary situations, because you have parents that apparently their kid just lost a scholarship to Nebraska because we just blew a call. So you'll get some of those. It typically doesn't last long. Hopefully at the high school level they take care of those. College level, it's pretty good. The coaches, the administrators, the ADs, the presidents certainly always want to hear from us, through our supervisor, is there a problem anywhere? And if there is, they are really good at taking care of that stuff. If there's a security issue, the next week somebody goes there, they will have triple the security. They're really good about making sure. I think the idea on their mind is, if something happens to an official, that's going to be front page news everywhere. We can't have that. So they're typically really good about it. I haven't had any real issues. You get people yelling at you. Sometimes you'll get people dumping stuff at you if you're kind of near the sidelines or near the end line, and especially by the student section, depending on whether they allow drinking in the stadium or not. But never anything that's been real dangerous. I've been lucky that way.
Okay, Bill. So we've talked a lot about the fact that you guys get graded, you're evaluated, and they're encouraging you guys to make the right calls. What happens if you have a consistent pattern of bad calls and bad evaluations? And is there ever any circumstance where an official actually gets taken off of a crew during the middle of a season because of misconduct or incompetence?
Yeah, that does happen. Not often. So again, at the Division I level, you have got guys that typically the reason guys get in trouble in officiating usually is off-field issues. And the reason being, there's just no excuse for any off-field issues. Now, whether it is, a lot of times if you are in a city with a Division I football program, you will have guys come in, you'll have 8 guys come into a hotel, and at least in my situation, and I think most of the situations, you've got the 8 greatest customers in the world. We go out to eat and everybody's extremely polite because, first of all, people know who you are. It's not that hard to see 8 guys going to dinner beforehand, or 8 guys checking into a hotel, a lot of them with big sky bags, knowing who those people are. So the last thing we need is, nowadays with cell phones, and that's the last thing we need. So a lot of times if there are issues, it'll be off-field. On-field issues, yes, it does happen. So we get graded every play, and so if there is a consistent pattern, you just cannot get this play correct, you may not get hired again. Typically, if you make a wrong call and you get called on it, what they want to see is, do you make it right the next time? The next time you have it, you've been told this, do you make the right? All I want to see is you're coachable. If you're coachable, as long as you've still got enough speed and athletic ability to be out there on the field, they won't take you off. You make mistakes, yes, everybody makes mistakes. You make the same one over and over again, that is a problem. Is there ever a situation where somebody gets taken off a crew? Not typically, again, certainly not on the field issues, but there are situations in which a whole crew gets suspended. That happens, and a lot of times you talk about an individual person. When things happen on the field, it's, yes, that person gets graded, but that is a reflection of the whole crew. I think people also think once we leave the game, nothing phases us about the game. That is certainly not true either. I mean, every official will tell you about that play that they think they may have blown and that may have cost the team a game. It can be 15 years ago, and we remember it because that's the last thing we want to happen. Yes, a lot of the game gets blurred. We don't remember a lot of it, but I'll tell you what, you make a wrong call and you remember it probably forever. And if it's something that caused somebody to lose a game, you definitely remember it forever. So the idea that these guys make a call and then they just go on with their lives, they don't think anything about it, is just, it's not true. Especially as you go up further and higher, and as the stakes are higher. In general, the thinking that we don't care what happens out there is amazing to me, because we do. We don't care who wins, that's for sure. But if we make a bad call, it eats us up inside. Whether we get evaluated on it or not, it eats us up.
One of the goals and objectives of the teams is to win the game, and the goals and objectives of the officials is to create a level playing field so that the teams can determine the fate of the game and not you guys. And so I think it's a unique perspective, but it's one that has just as high of a priority for the officials to be successful as it is for the teams to be successful.
Yeah, and if you look at teams, so you look at a high school player, and maybe he's playing just for the fun of it. That's what they should be playing for. But some of them are playing, I want to go play in college. So they're trying to play their best. Same thing, college to the pros, right? They got to play their best to get there. A lot of people don't understand officials are the same way, right? We work very hard in high school because we hope to work in college. Now you work in college at Division II because you want to be the best in Division II, because you know if you are the best there, they're going to move you up to Division I. The best from there move up to the NFL. So the idea isn't just that we go out there and have fun and call a game. It's that we want to do the best we can, certainly for the game itself, but also for our own egos to say, I'm the best at this level. You should never be looking ahead to say, oh, I should be at the next level. Other people make those decisions, and they usually make good ones. But you always look at your own level and say, I want to be the best one here. And the reason I want to, certainly because it's just better to be the best, but also because I want to move to that next level.
Okay, so your season goes generally from August to maybe early January or maybe December. What do you do during the rest of the year to hone your skills? And it's mental skills, it's physical skills, physical ability, condition, as well as command of the rules and just getting the flow of a game. Do you ever sit down in the middle of May and watch a football game and call it? I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, so there really is no off season when you're talking about college officiating. So we start the games actually start in September. Or end of August. We go through, the regular season ends in November. Then you have, in our level, you have playoffs. If you're lucky enough to get chosen for those, that go through December into January. But typically after the season so during the season, it's week by week, it's getting ready for that next game. I try when I get back home Monday and Tuesday, try to put everything aside. Sunday I have to fill out reports about what we call them. Monday, Tuesday I try to focus on work, focus on family. Even Wednesday, Thursday start to ramp back up, which is we get evaluations, so you go over those. We watch a little bit of the teams that are coming up, trying to get ready for those. When the season's done, so during the season you're trying to keep up your physical abilities, but you're not necessarily trying to get stronger. You're just trying to make sure you can get through each week. When the season's over, I typically, the way I do it is I typically up my workouts and try to lift more weights, do things that I'm not that worried about getting hurt because I've still got time to recover for that. As far as rules, you're always, usually in January, you kind of set things aside. Come February, you get right back into it. Here, we have meetings with Division I guys and Division II guys here in Colorado Springs. We have meetings starting usually February to March time. You have meetings once every 2 weeks usually, just going over rules. And we have lots of tests that we go through. We have, as an official, you get tested quite often. Usually every week you have a test, a rules test. So you'll go through those. I meet with the guys. We'll watch some film during those times. When it comes to March, April, we've got spring ball. So we're going out and working all those spring games. During the summer, again, you're getting back into the rule book. You've got clinics that you go to. You got camps you go to. Your conference is going to have their clinic, so you have a big test there that determines whether or not you work at all. So you get study for those. Again, you meet with the local guys, constantly going through rules. Fall comes and you're already into practices, so you're working those, Air Force and other things around here. And then the season starts again before you know it. So it's hard there's really no off season, especially when it comes to rules. I have a pretty good rules guy. Some people aren't that way, and so it's a lot more time in the rule book, but it never ends, but it slows down a little bit just to work a game.
So how many off weeks do you have in 19 out of the 14 or 15 weeks?
So in 2019 I have 3 weeks off out of, typically ours is 13 to 14 weeks, so I think I've got 3 weeks off. We had 2, and our crew has off 2 weeks. I just had a developmental guy come in for me in 1 week. So, but yeah, I work now. So I had a game last weekend, and ironically, you have a game, you have a week off, and you somehow figure out a way to pick up another game. So you'll go down a lower level, and we'll ask those supervisors, "Do you need help this weekend?" A lot of times the answer is yeah, and so you'll go. Drives my wife crazy because I have a week off, and here I jumped on a plane and went to San Diego. And worked Harvard San Diego and worked a JUCO game that night. And she says, so you have the week off, and yet you are jumping on a plane to go work a game that means nothing and isn't in your conference. And the answer is yeah, you can't get away from it. So you want to keep doing it. I do have, so I worked last week, so end of September, we don't have off again until November 9th. So that is, a month and a half that we're working every single weekend. So it gets busy. It drives, again, my wife crazy, but luckily she's a good one. And, her dad was a referee for a long time, so she knows exactly what it takes and what it is. It doesn't help any with 3 kids at home, but, she's the best for it. So.
Absolutely. Well, Bill, thank you very much. Good luck this weekend in your officiating endeavors. Good luck the rest of the season, and I appreciate your perspective on an official's view of the game of football.
Thank you, Craig. I appreciate it, and I love the podcast. I listen to it all the time. It's very helpful.
Thank you. Good job, dude.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Pro Mindset. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. 5 stars, of course. You can follow us on our website, ProMindsetPodcast.com, or on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Pro Mindset Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you the next time.
Leftovers. Or the DMV.
Number 97.
Or house cleaning. Or
Chumba Casino always brings the fun. Play over 100 different games online for free from anywhere. You could redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. Live the Chumba life. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
leftovers. Or the DMV.
Number 97.
Or house cleaning. Or
Chumba Casino always brings the fun. Play over 100 different games online for free from anywhere. You could redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. Live the Chumba life. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.